The views expressed here are those of the authors and do not in any way represent the views of Zakir TV.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Ladies First. I'm joined here by my lovely panellists Sayyidah Saba, Francesca and Tamara. Assalamu alaikum, ladies. As this is a Muharram episode, I'd like to bring in a discussion to do with Sunni school of thought. There is a prominent Sunni evangelical scholar by the name of Dr. Zakir Naik, I believe it is. Is that correct? Yeah. Who is, well, he's a scholar and he's quite successful and popular in the Sunni circles. Now, when discussing the events of Muharram and Karbala, he has been known to say that this was purely a political act, and really it wasn't as many of our Shia brothers and sisters believe. You know, he tends to think that it's overly exaggerated and it was basically business rather than anything personal. How do we feel about that?
I think it's an absolutely shocking thing for him to come out with, considering how knowledgeable he is, and the way he kind of said it so in a really blasé kind of way. I mean, surely he should have known what the consequences were going to be. I mean, understanding that the Shia community hold obviously Imam Ali and, you know, the Ahlul Bayt quite highly, and for him to say it's a political thing, it's actually quite shocking. I think it's. I mean, apparently he did apologise, but the damage has been done, isn't it?
But why do we know why he apologised? Did he come out and say it was a lack of knowledge, or was it his interpretation of, I don't know, material books that he had read? What was the reason behind his apology?
I can't remember. It was a while ago when I heard it, but he just he didn't expect such an outrage from the Shia community. He didn't mean it in such a way, and he didn't kind of go into the details from what I remember about it. But
your thoughts, Benny?
I mean, I saw a couple of. I mean, he obviously, he has, mashallah, he's got a lot of knowledge on different subjects, but I think I remember watching, I don't know if it was the same one, but I remember watching something and someone did bring up Karbala, asked him a question, and he really just very lightly didn't really give glazed over it, didn't really give any information, anything knowledgeable about it. So that sort of made me wonder, well, you've sort of got all of this knowledge on all these other subjects, yet you have sort of not have any knowledge, or you don't have an opinion, or you don't acknowledge it. So to be honest, I find the whole thing really quite
and
bizarre.
It's quite shocking. It's like the biggest event in the history of
it's the reason why we've got Shia and Sunni.
And I've had so many conversations with Salafis and Wahhabis, and they have no idea of this subject, and I find that absolutely shocking. I've spoken to so many, and they're very like, oh really? Oh, does it even? They barely know about Muharram, and it's like, okay, that's it. But there's no real conversation or discussion about it.
I mean, I don't know, but if it's not in sources, the way that obviously we have access to those sources, then why would you? And if it's not something that you're being brought up to have an understanding about, then why would you? But whenever I've seen anyone ask about that particular subject to him, he has just really casually, just literally 30 seconds, said something very briefly and then moves on to the next subject. So
they just don't give it that importance, don't they?
There's also this mentality when it is, if it's something controversial, if it's something in history, then let's just forget about it, and
keep the community united.
Exactly, united. And they have this idea of this romantic idea of everyone loved each other, everything was perfect, and why come and destroy this beautiful image of the past and of the time of the Prophet, when it was just it's natural. There were conflicts, there were problems that they had to deal with, and also not taking the science of the history. History is a very important it's a very important
absolutely.
subject, exactly, the study, but it's kind of not being taken seriously. They look at it as something, no,
they've
it's not
almost
necessary.
edited or
Exactly,
moved
it's
away,
unnecessary to study.
Things have been changed and fiddled around
not
with.
Let's focus on
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah.
Let's focus
Yeah.
on
Just
how to pray and how to do wudu, and like, well, how would you know how to pray and how to do wudu if you don't look back at history? Or how do you know how to
literature in
take
relation
your
to it.
your religion from if you don't look back at history? So history is definitely important, but yeah, it's looked.
Well, having
Being done
quite a bit of knowledge about the Sunni community and their train of thought, I have to say that for a majority of Sunnis, as Francesca said, they have no idea about what even Karbala is.
Yeah.
They see Shias as being very orientated towards certain countries, and those countries wanting power, say Iran, Iraq, and having their ideas and their influences rather than facts. Now, they have a lot of books, the Sunnis, as we know that they were really funded by, various groups of people. For me, it's heartbreaking because when you have a lot of reverts that come into the religion, the Sunni community is so organized. They have their books, and it's almost a science to them that everything's recorded. This person whose cousin was this person, who's this person, and you're forced into the sense of, well, they must be right then. And their arguments, I think a lot of the time they do have good intentions, and they've got all their facts from whatever source, but they're not looking deeper. And it's difficult when you've got thousands and thousands of books and organisations that are promoting a certain issue.
I think it's very confusing for reverts or converts or
and it also
so
it's
much
mind-boggling
confusing for us.
Yeah.
And also this fact, a lot of the time I've personally been told, well, in Islam, there is no thing as following your family roots. It's almost like a democracy. There was a freedom of choice as to who the scholars were, and if it was so, the imams were. And a lot of Sunnis don't believe in this idea of infallibility, which the Shias do. Even when it comes to prophets, other than our beloved prophet, who was, the best of mankind, they don't believe that because they will quote, for example, Hazrat Musa. He had some issues. Everyone had, they were infallible. So they have a problem with understanding that, and it does take a certain type of person to dig below the surface and see.
And anyway, when we talk about Sunnis, we're generalising.
Yes.
Sunnis, there's no such thing as just Sunnis.
No.
Just like there's no such thing as just Shias. Sunnis, they also consist of many different layers of different
And
sects
sects, yeah.
and different
Yeah,
beliefs and different
definitely.
interpretations. So it's a bit difficult to go just put them all on. Hey, Sunnis believe like that and Shias. And let's not forget as well, from an outsider point of view, it can be quite, it's kind of not scary, but perhaps even scary to look, looking at especially the rituals of Ashura for an outsider. When they look at it, they think probably, it looks more like, it's rituals. It looks more like a cult.
It's like when you Google Shia, and the images that come up are just blood,
So extreme,
children, and they're that in itself is quite off-putting.
So so you already you already form an idea of what those people are. So there's no need to even look at what they have to say because it looks scary from the outside. Certain things look scary,
And also
or it looks too foreign.
It could also be, when you look at a lot of the injustices, it's very difficult to come into a faith that you think is perfected and, everything's there and see, well, actually, even in our own faith, there have been incidences where there's been corruption or distortion. And that can be quite, destabilizing for somebody to even incorporate that. Speaking of myself, I mentioned in another episode that even going to majlises, I really wanted to stay away from them because I thought it was very theatrical. It was almost cultural. You come almost like Christmas. You put your religion away for all the time, and then once a year you come and express yourself, and that's it. But I had to find my own connection of what is this? Is this the truth? And baby steps. But it was a lot. It was a lot because in my mind I associated Shias with being over the top, you know, always mourning, and you know, even being, you know, my mother being Shia, it was everything was exaggerated, and you know, we've been wronged, and I was like, my God, can't we have some joy in our life?
Do you find it's calmed down now? Because some of the majlises I've been to recently have been quite calm. They've not been as sort of...
Well, personally, I like the emotion. I like the emotion. I like going to different majlises. I like going to the Hujra ones where they have, you know, it's almost like a theatrical, not a performance, but you get to, you know, the coffins are there, and for the children seeing it visually, you know,
just trying to make it as realistic as possible.
Exactly, you know, the Afghani ones where they sit down calmly in the square, and
I mean, for me personally, obviously, because I reverted, that was actually what attracted me to the religion, was actually the story of Karbala, and going to, you know, the majlises. And I think for me, the reason why I was so attracted to it was because it was a group of people that weren't afraid to show their love for something that they really strongly believed in. So when I went to sort of my first majlis, and there was Latmiyat, and there was Matam, and it was very passionate, and you could really... for me, that experience, nobody was any different. The one thing that sort of had brought all these, and there were different people, there were some, you know,
yes, all different
communities were there. And for me, that was actually something that actually really drew me into Islam, because the first thing I learned about was the story of Karbala. So I found it incredibly moving and very emotional.
And the injustice of it, I think it's a very moving experience.
But to have, for that to have happened when it happened, and for this movement that is so... people are so passionate about it, and for it to be in this day and age, and people are still saying, this is what happened, we're not going to forget.
That's it, we're not going to forget.
This is what we're going to do, this is in memory of, you know, of what we believe in, and this is what we, you know, we stand for. And for me, it's just a huge thing. And I know with my children, and the way that I've tried to sort of bring them up is, I've tried to give them those visual examples and say, well, this is what we believe in, and this is what, like, you know, we understand to be true, and it's important that you feel that and form your own connection. But form your own connection.
Yeah.
If this wasn't done, nobody would know of it.
Exactly.
The way the world is going at the moment.
Exactly.
You know, nobody would know of it. So I think it's necessary to have these, obviously.
I think having been in the Sunni community as well, it's very disappointing when you look back, and I speak to my friends who were Sunni, and I don't want to divide, but I'm only bringing this example just to say, you know, the lack of knowledge that they have, and sometimes they need an explanation as to why I am the person I am today, and it's not a fad, it's not, this is something that happened, I recognise it, and you look into your history, look into your Islam. This is all our history. This is our Islamic history. And we have a right and a duty to see what has happened in the past so we don't recreate the mistakes.
It's really, really frustrating how they just don't want to know about it. I'm like,
it's like
quite a few people I know, go and read into it. At least read into it.
Yeah, I guess also from their point. So, you know, what's the relevance of it today? Why do we have to look back and see, you know, what conflicts happened back then? But then again, that's our you know, role and our responsibility to explain as well, you know, the importance of it, and why is it important that we understand our history? Why is it important that we understand what happened back then? How does it affect our, you know, our Islam today as well? You know, because obviously, you know, the course of history is what makes the future, is what makes today.
And again, it's a cycle. Things are happening in this day and age at a different scale, at a different. But it's again,
what we learn from it
as a
story, even what we actually learn from it, what we teach our kids. It's an important part of our history, and of course, everyone has to know.
Part of our identity, isn't it? If you don't. You don't know where you've come from, then how are you going to know where you're
heading?
It's strange because there's a lot of scholars out there that we would just presume, you know, being so educated, and some of the scholars, there are a couple that I know who are from Syria and Iraq, etc., who are not Shia. It would make me wonder, well, you're from there, you speak the language, you have access to those, you know, libraries that you have, those authentic, but how could you not Why would you not accept this?
Because I think it's
event?
also today is a bit bigger than just religion. Today it's more like to do with politics and what's happening around the world. And so it's like there are other layers to it that we cannot
I mean, if
ignore.
Dr. Zakir had sort of come out right about Imam Ali and about the whole event, it would threaten his position.
It would. It would.
He's been supported by Saudi, and he's got a different agenda as well to some extent. And it would definitely affect his
he'd be accused
position.
of being Shia. He'd be
Absolutely, he'd lose his
But then
fan following.
Of some people, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that one of the people who recites during Hajj the namaz is actually an undercover Shia, but he can't say it because what will happen, to his family, etc. You don't know how true that is, but don't we have a responsibility to say, as we said in previous episodes, doing what's right and not what's easy? If you see the truth, you have to speak it, even from the scholars, or just say I don't know, or I feel uncomfortable with.
But then
this
it also
side of
says in the
history.
Quran that if your life is going to be threatened by coming out with that you're a Muslim even, then don't do that.
But
So-
threatened how? I really can't see
Well, if
people
you're
being
if you're in-
assassinated like
if you're in-
James Bond.
No,
So
but if
if
you're
it's-
in Saudi, I mean, there are stories, there's people that I know that have gone to Hajj and they're Shia and they've ended up being beaten up and doing a couple of nights in jail just because purely for the fact that they're Shia. So in a country like Saudi where these things are very tense and
and
these
that's
are challenging
physically
times.
being harmed.
Yeah,
But then sometimes
there's-
it's not just physical, but socially. You get your
your
whole reputation
reputation.
will be destroyed. And that is also.
And also it goes to
needs to be
another
taken into
level.
account.
It's almost, if you're a Shia and you go to like a Sunni mosque, and my son was telling me this when he goes to America, and or Eid prayer and he's praying a certain way, that identifies him as you could be Maliki, I guess, if you pray with your hands
So the
down
Torah
the
that
Shia.
gives you away.
Yeah, the Torah really gives it away. They're all like, oh my God, what you're doing it wrong. But I've noticed that when Sunnis come into a Shia mosque, nobody bothers them. Nobody asks why you're doing. But as soon as I go into one, everyone wants to know, okay, who taught you? You've been, misguided. What's going on? It's like, oh.
Again, it depends on the mentality. If you have the mentality of, you're a kafir if you don't believe the same as me, and you're a disbeliever, then that's what's going to
It's
be
even
causing
wrong
problems.
to say that
If you
about
don't
another
have
Muslim,
that,
and if Muslims are saying that to Muslims, that's awful.
yeah, well, even us Shias, Shias also have that problem between each other, so we cannot exclude ourselves from that sin. So it is, it depends on how you look at things positively. If you're looking at things, if you want to teach people about what you believe is the truth, you teach your fellow Muslims about what you believe, is going to actually educate them more with that intention. That's a noble cause, I'd say. But if you do it because you think, hey, I'm right and you're wrong, and you're kafir and I'm saving your life from hell, that is not going to come across.
Well,
very
do
well.
you think we, as Shias, feel insulted by the way that it's almost dumbed down what happened? It was just a little political thing. Let's all unite. Is that almost like, what is it? If we were to say that about any other group, whatever happened to them, let's think of, there's so many groups in our society that bad things have happened to. Let's take slavery, for example, in America. Do we turn around and say, well, hey,
It happened.
it happened. It was, it was for a reason. It was a monetary thing. Let's forget about it and all get along. We don't accept that in that situation there. So why would we accept it when it comes to?
Are we accepting
No,
it?
we shouldn't.
We're not.
Well, I think the fact that especially in debates, when you approach certain Sunni scholars, they get very defensive about, oh, you're causing division. It's like, well, no, but I want you to acknowledge this has happened. Could you at least acknowledge it, that this has happened?
If they believe differently from you.
They just don't want to go on about it as much as we do.
Because
maybe.
there's some
That's
people
just there.
that don't believe Karbala happened.
But that's entirely up to them, and
That's
I'm sure
entirely up to
Allah
them.
guides those that Allah wants to guide. And I think that the whole point about it is, I can only obviously speak for myself, not everybody else, but my beliefs, I'm strong enough in my religious beliefs and what I believe in and what I've done, like reading and speaking to people and things like that. If somebody chooses not to believe that those events happened, that is entirely up to them. But it does not threaten my position, my spiritual understanding. It doesn't, you know. And I think we shouldn't be afraid of people asking questions. I don't know why we get, you know. And it's both sides, Sunnis and Shias. Both sides get fearful that if somebody else questions what's going on in your faith, that somehow it's going to shake the foundations a little bit and things are going to fall apart. But questions are healthy and questions are good.
But what would happen if, say, you were married and your partner was Sunni and you were Shia, and then when it came to the children, what would you tell them? Because it's difficult. We are extremely similar. Obviously, there are brothers and sisters in Islam, and we love them for that. But fundamentally, there are huge differences. If you just take from the way the prayers, how it's performed, what it's said, how do you explain that? I mean,
well,
because
we pray to the same God, right?
Ultimately,
we do pray to the same God. So fundamentally, I don't know. There is no problem fundamentally. Many people will completely disagree with me here, and they will, you know, they think this is an outrageous thing to say. But I've seen examples. I've seen an example of a family living perfectly well together, and you know, and the children would actually understand that, you know, my mum believes in this kind of thing, my dad believes in that kind of thing. However, we pray to the same God, and it's their choice at the end of the day. So it's what you choose. Do you want to have that in your family? Do you want to have that kind of you know? It's up to you. Would you rather have? I would personally, I would rather choose someone that has the same path as me. You know, that believes in the same principles, that has the same. I don't want to be struggling. You know, I don't have extra struggles in my marriage. There are already.
But you know, Tamara, coming from that background, mother being Shia, father being Sunni, that was fine for me. There was no problem, and you know, obviously here we are today. But having my own son and being in the same situation, it's so much more complicated for him, because the other side of the family, depends where he goes, will enforce their views, and then when he's with our side, it's their views, and he's at an age that where he's really confused. He knows how he feels, but it's everybody else that makes it a problem.
Yeah, well, that's your struggle between you, let's say, and your partner, your husband. It's your way of dealing with this issue. How do you together, you know, come to an agreement of how to deal with, you know, with educating your child? You have to agree together and you know, for a way that.
And when children grow up, they kind of find their own pathway eventually.
A lot of the times, especially if you're divorced, you don't have that conversation. You know, when you're getting married, you think,
you don't. But I think both parents have a right to, without making it into it's not a competition at the end of the day. It's this is what I believe in, and this is what.
So you inform them of both
sides.
And
they'll make, you know, you don't know what they're going to do when they're older. They could turn around and say, forget it all, I'm going to go and join a commune and play guitar all day. You just don't. There's no guarantee.
That would be interesting to explain to them.
There's no guarantee, and all you can do is provide that child with
the guidance,
the information. It's the same thing if you've got if you have a child that's from two different heritage, you know, and you can explain this is what your dad does, this is what your mum does, and they make their own little mess. Kind of.
I mean, yes, the ideal is that, you know, both believe in the same thing, and you know, and then educate their children in that certain way. But again, not even that will guarantee that your child will follow your path. Your child will grow up, and they will have their own ideas, and they'll have their own ways of life, whatever that they'll choose.
As you can see, a lot. We've covered a lot here, and it's been really interesting to speak to you all. Wishing you all to include us in your prayers during Muharram. We hope to see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
If you have been affected by any of the issues raised in Ladies First, then the following organizations may be able to provide help and advice.